This 25mm f2 pancake lens from TTArtisan can be bought brand new today for around $65. With some sales, I've seen it as low as $50. Now, usually when you get a lens that's brand new at that kind of a price point, you're making some hefty trade-offs for that price savings. And that is absolutely the case with this lens. But oftentimes the question with these more budget-friendly lenses is, are the trade-offs that you're going to need to make worth it for the lens that you're going to get? So in this video, we're going to talk about whether or not the TTArtisan 25mm f2 is actually worth the money or not. First of all, a disclosure. TTArtisan did send me this lens for the purposes of the review. They do not have any input into what I say in this video, nor will they be seeing this video prior to its release. No money has changed hands except for them sending me this lens. Now, with that being said, I do want to make something very clear, because some of you out there might be thinking that because the company sent me this lens, that I would feel inclined to give it a glowing review so that I can get more or continue my partnership with that company. So I'm going to be very blunt here. I don't like this lens, and I would recommend this lens to very few people. And even those people that I would recommend it to, there's an alternative option that I think would actually work out better for most. But if you are considering this lens, there are a lot of good things about it, and there are some glaring issues with it as well. So we're going to talk about both, and at the end, you can all decide for yourselves whether or not a lens like this would be worth it for you. First, let's talk about the specifications. Like I mentioned, it's 25mm on an aps-c frame, which means it's approximately 35-ish millimeters on a full frame equivalent. It does offer a fast f2 aperture, and it offers all metal construction, which does actually feel very nice and solid. The aperture ring has nice noticeable clicks, and the focus ring, while it has a very short throw, does have a nice smooth motion and does not drift or easily, move away from the position that you leave it at. The all metal construction makes it quite durable, and you can feel that heft in your hand when you hold it. Now, that is a bit of an anachronism, though, the fact that you have a rather heavy construction on a compact lens. When paired with a compact camera like my XM5, it does add a significant amount of weight to it. Not so much that you feel like you're going to be tired after a day of holding it, but enough that it's a pancake lens, and I kind of don't understand why we need it to be so small while making it so heavy. It does make it nice and durable though, and like I said, it does have a nice premium feel to it. Considering the price point, do not expect any kind of electronics on this lens. It has none, and it also has no weather sealing whatsoever. You can almost think of this like a vintage film camera lens with modern glass, and I'm assuming some modern coating. It might not be the best or anything like that, but it's good enough, and it won't be faded or it won't have fungus or anything like many old film lenses would. The max aperture of f2 also makes it a pretty decent performer in low light. It also makes it pretty good at rendering bokeh. And I mentioned earlier about the focus ring throw. It is very nice and smooth, but that actually presents a bit of a problem that we will talk about later. But all in all, this is a very bare bones lens at a very bare bones price. If you actually pick it up on sale for about $50, I think that's absolutely worth it in my opinion. I think if you're interested in something that's really compact, budget friendly, and image quality isn't of the highest priority to you, I would say skip the rest of the video and go pick this up for $50. But if you are concerned about image quality, and that is a bit of a concern with this lens, stick around so we can talk about it. Before we talk about image quality though, let's talk about the bad stuff about the lens. Next up, let's talk about the aperture ring. The aperture ring is a little bit peculiar to me because it has virtually no half-stop adjustments. Going from f2, there is a half-stop adjustment between f2 and f2.8, then it goes from f2.8 to 4 to 5.6 to 8, then to 16. There's no half-stop adjustments whatsoever, which means if you are finding yourself in a situation where you're shooting f8, for example, and it's a little bit too much light, going down to f16 might not be enough light, and you'll be heavily relying on shutter speed and ISO to compensate. Depending on your shooting situations, though, this may not be the biggest deal. As with any wide-angle lens, the corner sharpness is going to leave something to be desired, but especially so with any compact lens. And this lens is no different. And if you look at the sample photos from this lens, you can absolutely notice it. Wide-angle lenses also tend to suffer from a good bit of distortion, where it makes a flat subject look almost curved around the edges. These next two sample images taken straight on at a wall with many straight lines, you can see how the lens almost makes the wall look a bit curved. One thing that every wide-angle lens should be able to handle well is center sharpness. And this lens does perfectly fine in that category. It's nothing to write home about, and it's not exactly what I would call tack sharp. There's always a little bit of fuzziness no matter how in focus I get. If you do shoot with this lens and crop in, you will get rid of all of that edge distortion issue, but the center will still leave something to be desired. That is, if you manage to get it in focus. So now let's talk about the biggest issue that I found with this lens. You might have noticed that I said a couple of times in this video, if you get it in focus, because that was legitimately an issue that I had with this lens. I found myself on multiple occasions taking a photo and realizing it was completely out of focus, even though I was focused at near infinity or just slightly pulled back. Now, initially, I thought the problem was actually that this lens couldn't focus further than a few feet in front of you. If you take a look at this image, taken at f2 with the focus pulled out to infinity, the center is clearly not in focus. The mountains are actually way off, and when you zoom in, it becomes even more clear. However, if you look a little bit closer, to the left side of the image, it actually is somewhat in focus on the foliage in front of it. Now again, this was shot at f2, so wide open, with the focus ring pulled to infinity. And pulling a focus ring to infinity can often cause things to be out of focus. But this is rather extreme. At the time, what was more alarming was the fact that something closer than the mountains appeared to be more in focus than the mountains that were further away. And at infinity focus, or close to infinity, you would expect not to see anything like that. So I did a good bit of testing in a few different scenes in low light as well. And my conclusion is that it's not an issue of the focus, although the focus ring does contribute to the issue that we'll talk about later. The issue is mainly with the sharpness of the lens, or lack thereof, when you get lower down in the aperture range. At wide open and at f2, unless you're really close to the subject, it is not sharp. It is far, far from it. It doesn't begin to get sharp until around f4 to f5.6. The best results were at f8 specifically, which is typical for most lenses. But the level of unsharpness and the level of softness that you see at wide open makes it difficult to even use in low light. That's generally when you would want to use a wide open aperture. Now, the focus ring does actually contribute to the problem a little bit. I mentioned it has quite a short throw. From one end to the other is about half a turn of the focus ring, whereas normally you would have to do like almost a full rotation. While that's nice in a compact lens that you can get from one end of the focus to the other and you can quickly rack your focus, it does present a bit of an issue when you're focusing far away, especially at some of those wider aperture values. The difference between the 3-meter focus and the infinity focus mark is only maybe 2 or 3 of these little textured notches on the focus ring. It is so small of a distance that you're always going to need to weirdly find this middle point between the infinity marker and the 3-meter marker. And only then will you realistically be able to get a wide shot in focus. But let's go back to the sharpness at wide open, because I think that is where my biggest concern and issue with this lens is. It is so unbelievably soft that it appears out of focus when it is wide open. And so what that means is, even though this lens boasts a fast f2 aperture, it's not really usable. f2.8 is passable, depending on the size of image that you're looking at, right? If you're looking at it on your phone, you're probably okay. But even on your phone, that softness at f2 is alarmingly noticeable. It's far less noticeable when you're doing like a close-up or a more macro shot, but this is not a macro lens. It does not have a close focusing distance. So I struggle to see the value of it. Realistically, it's an f4, maybe an f2.8. So 25mm f2.8 for $65. Still not the worst deal in the world. But because you have to think about so much to get a sharp image with this lens, I have a hard time recommending it. And the question that I kept asking myself while I was shooting with this lens was, who is this for? Who is gonna benefit from this lens? Who is gonna need a lens that is this cheap and wouldn't care that much about the image quality or the softness or the inability to use f2 or f2.8? And the person that I kept thinking of was someone like me when I was in college, when I was living barely paycheck to paycheck with maybe $50 to $100 in my bank account at any given point in time. I did not have the budget to spend hundreds of dollars on a fast prime, but I really, really wanted to. If something like this would have existed around then, I might have pulled the trigger on it. But you have to keep in mind you are going to get what you pay for. And if I'm perfectly honest, even for the individuals that may find a lot of use and may enjoy this lens and may find value in this lens because of its price point, I would actually recommend a different option. I would recommend something more like this. This is specifically a 50mm f1.7, a little nifty 50 made by Sears. Yes, that's Sears, which at one point in time made anything from tools to camera lenses to build your own house kits. Lenses like this are all over the used market. They're all over Facebook Marketplace. They are all over eBay. And you can pick up something like this for about $20 to $30. You can pick up something a little bit nicer, like my Konica Hexar 57mm f1.4, and paired with an adapter, you're spending no more than about $80 to $100 on a lens like this. This Sears in particular, you're spending maybe $40 to $50 total. About the same price point as the TTArtisan to adapt a lens like this to your mirrorless camera. And that's where the issue for me really lies. I would love to recommend this lens for extremely budget conscious photographers or people just getting into it that want to explore having a couple of other lens options. But when I know that options like this exist out there for mirrorless cameras, I can't really recommend this. I guess if you don't want to deal with the extra bulk of a lens adapter and changing your lens adapter setting and everything, you could go for this instead. But even a lens like this, which has kind of notoriously soft image quality, I can get to be tack sharp even at f1.4 in a low light situation. This lens is infinitely more usable than this one. So that's kind of it. I have a hard time seeing where this lens fits in and why you would want to get this lens new when options like that exist. But if you are interested in checking this out, I am going to put a link down below. As of right now, it is on sale for about 50 bucks. I don't know how long that sale is going to last. And that is pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on the TTArtisan 25mm f2. Now, I know companies like TTArtisan are known for making some really, really cheap lenses like that are not so great and some really, really good ones. So I'm curious to hear if you have the other TTArtisan lenses, the ones that are known for being good and really great, offering great value. I would love to hear what your experiences are in the comments down below. If you have that lens, I would love to hear what your experience is with that one as well. Maybe I got something wrong, or maybe mine has some kind of defect with the focus. I have no idea. But with that being said, if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button. If you want to see more photography related content like this, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.